Hello all, so I've managed to acquire myself an old Commodore VIC-20 and I'm particularly happy about it because I've actually managed to find one of the special edition yellow nicotine stained variants, so quite pleased about that. So I didn't pay a lot of money for it, and as you can probably guess from looking at the state of it, it was advertised as not working. However, when I've plugged it in I am getting a picture, it is generating a video signal, all the keys do seem to work. But the picture's very hit and miss, it's very in and out. I'm going to assume and hope that there isn't a chip out on the way. So I'm just hoping that the problems I'm having with it are just down to old capacitors maybe. Maybe I could try resocketing some chips. So I thought I'll open it up, I'll recap it. I think I'm also going to add some heat sinks to some of the hotter chips as well. I'm going to try and preserve them for as long as possible, maybe extend the life by doing that. So yeah, let's get into it. So, yeah. It comes apart fairly easily, it's just 3 screws that hold the whole case together. And there we go. So we've got the power supply for the LED power light. Keyboard connector. Let's move that out the way. Now I have had this open before. I just want to have a quick look at the motherboard, and what I did find in there was this cardboard insert. And I think it must act as some sort of RF shield. But what it actually does do is it blocks all these vent holes at the bottom, so I've removed it and it's staying out. So to remove it from the case, there's just a few little screws. Right, I'll just ground myself quickly before I touch the motherboard. Out she comes. Don't need that. Right, so what I'll do is I'll run through and I'll change all these capacitors. I'll add some heat sinks and we'll see if that improves the situation. Fine. Since my camera decided to pack up on me halfway through the recap, I'll switch to a different camera. And now I can show you that I have successfully recapped the entire board, and I've added some heat sinks as well. Maybe it'll give a bit more life to the system, I don't know. Can't hurt. Anyway, next job, case. Okay, so now the motherboard's been taken care of, it's time to give some time to the case. So, I've already stripped it down, I've separated the keyboard, and you can see from the inside the actual difference. That's the colour that we should have, and this is what we've got now. So I think I need to go and run some hot soapy water. I've got my ex-girlfriend's toothbrush. I'll have it scrubbing. Okay, so that's the case all cleaned up, it's washed. I can now handle it without needing a tetanus shot. But it's still a rather disgusting colour, so I think we're going to need a little bit of peroxide. So the problem I've got at the moment is it's early December and there is absolutely no sunlight when I'm at home. So I get up in the dark, I go to work in the dark. By the time I come home from work, it's dark. So I'm going to try an experiment. I'm going to try and do this under artificial light. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I think the worst thing that can happen is it won't work. Now, I don't want to do any sort of how-to on retrobrighting because there's people who probably know considerably more about it than I do, and they're all over YouTube. And if you've got a technique that works for you, then do that. But I'll show you how I do it. I have one of these bags, and it's from one of those oven cleaning kits. Paint the peroxide on the case, put it in the bag. That then sits outside for a few hours in the summer anyway, and it would look fantastic after that. Let's try it under artificial light. So what I'm going to do now, I've got my peroxide, I've got my brush. I'm going to go and slap some of this on, stick it in the bag, and then we'll sit it under a light, an artificial light, for a few days, and we'll just see what happens. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, I don't know. Right, so the peroxide's done its thing, and the case is looking a lot whiter now, although it's not completely perfect. What I actually did is I had it in a bag under my kitchen light for about a week, which is horrific. And it still isn't perfect. So I think I've answered the question that I had. Can you retrobright plastic in December under a kitchen light? The answer is yes, you can, but it'll never be perfect. And secondly, for the sake of your own sanity, don't, because a week is ridiculous. Now, it'll drive you mad even attempting it, so it's too late for me, but for God's sake, save yourselves. So I've gone and invested in a full spectrum light, so hopefully I can get this thing finished and looking proper. So, I've picked up one of these things. So I'm going to give it a bit more peroxide. I'm going to give it a few hours under this, and we'll see how it comes out. So the spring The space bar is actually slightly bigger than the other standard. I'll keep that separate. Some filth off it. This is just a bit of isopropyl alcohol. Right, the case has spent about 4 hours under a full spectrum light. I think that's about as white as we're going to get it now. And considering what we started with, I don't think it looks too bad at all. One point to note though, it has caused some damage to the logo. And it's nothing I can't fix, it just wants a bit of a rub down, a bit of silver paint, and it should be fine. But learn from my mistake. So if you are going to do this, I'd recommend taking that badge off. In fact, that brings up another point I want to make. Whenever you do something like this, whenever you're stripping down a machine, retrobrighting, whatever, you are risking damage. So ask yourself, if the only reason that you're taking this thing apart is for cosmetic reasons, is it worth it? I mean, a yellow computer will work just as well as a pristine white one. For example, I've got an old Acorn Electron here, and I did quite a bit of work on this a while ago to resocket a few chips. I had to put a new RAM in it to make it work, and I did change all the capacitors. Now, for me, this has been restored from an electrical point of view. However, I've not retrobrighted the case at all. And I don't think I'm going to bother either, because it has yellowed a little bit, but it's not too bad. And yes, I could probably get it a bit brighter, but doing that, I'm risking damage. And frankly, I don't see any benefit from it. So I think if it's your machine, you do what you want to do with it, obviously. But bear in mind, if all you're doing are cosmetic improvements, ask yourself, is it worth it? If you're going to potentially cause some damage, if it cost a lot of money, for example, or even more importantly, if it's got some sort of sentimental value to you as well. If you can live with a slightly yellow computer, maybe that's a thought, I don't know. The case of the VIC-20, I absolutely couldn't stand the colour of it, so there was no sentimental attachment to it. It didn't cost me a lot of money. I thought, well, I'll give it a go, and frankly, I'm glad I did, because the colour of it beforehand was absolutely disgusting. But I'll just bear it in mind and do as you will, I suppose. Okay, I think it's about time I start putting the keyboard back together. All the keys have been washed. The keyboard itself is clean. I haven't retrobrighted any of these keys, so the lettering is still a bit yellow on the top, but what I don't want, because the brown keys, I don't want any sort of marbling effect from the peroxide, so I've decided instead just to live with the slight yellowing. So well, let's start putting this back together. It's actually been about a month since I took it apart, and that's due to faulty cameras and having to buy a new one and Christmas shopping and all that. But anyway, we're here now anyway, so let's start with this spacebar. in the neck. Right. Okay, so they're all on. I haven't put the function keys on yet, simply because if you look underneath, there's actually two holes where these can click in, and I can't for the life of me remember which one they should go into, so I think I will fit these once it's back in the case and I can line it up properly. Right, no need to wrench these tight, you're only screwing into very soft plastic, so bear that in mind when you reattach it. Might as well put the LED back in while we're at it. There we go. Taking shape. Right, now I can put these function keys in. Right, so it slots into the right hand peg. Right, so now the motherboard can go back in. I've just grounded myself. And I'm really wondering if I've overdone it with the heat sinks, but so what. Right, let's reunite the two halves. Just be very careful with these clips at the back, they're very fragile. There we go. And done. Right, well, nothing else left to do but give it a whirl and make sure it still works. Yes, it does. Let's look at that green screen at startup. It seems to clear up. I don't know why it does that. Clearly it's not a capacitor issue. Keys all seem to work, well, ones I'm pressing seem to work anyway. Lovely. Okay, I'm going to switch it off now, and it's going to stay off simply because I haven't dealt with the main reason for failure on these computers, and that's the power brick. So these things can fail, and they do quite readily. And instead of getting a nice regulated 5 volts DC, you'll end up with Christ knows what going through the computer and frying it. So until I source a replacement power supply, this thing goes back in the box, because I don't want to fry it after I've done all this work to it. And there we have it. I'm quite pleased with the way this came out. Is it perfect? No. Was I going for perfection? Not really. All of my retro equipment, they're not shelf queens. I do like to use them. So if they're not absolutely pristine, that's fine. Although there are a couple of more things I will be doing to this. Firstly, I'm going to sort out these badges that were damaged by the peroxide. Not a big deal. What is a big deal is the power supply. So I'm going to have a think about how I'm going to handle that. But until I do, I won't be powering this on again. Anyway, I think that's a massive improvement over what I started with originally. I'm pleased. And I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you very much.